Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales that we're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. I never imagined my marriage would come down to this. A moment where my wife sat across from me, twisting her wedding ring, hesitation thick in the air. The air between us felt suffocating, heavy with the unspoken words that I already sensed would change everything. "Martin," she finally said, her voice quiet but firm. "I need to talk to you about something." I closed the book in my hands, setting it down as I studied her face. There was a flicker of something there, nervousness, anticipation, and something darker beneath the surface. "All right," I said, already feeling the tightness in my chest. "What is it?" She exhaled, fingers still fidgeting with that damned ring. "Ever since my cancer diagnosis, my perspective has changed. I don't want to waste time anymore." I nodded slowly. "I know that. It's why we took those trips, why you started painting, why we changed so much about our lives." She swallowed. "Yes, but there's something else. Something I haven't allowed myself to acknowledge until now." A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. "Go on." She looked me dead in the eyes, and what she said next shattered me. "I want a hall pass." I blinked. The words didn't register at first. "A what?" "A one-time opportunity to be with someone else," she clarified, voice soft but unwavering. For a moment, I thought she was joking, but there was no humor in her expression. Just cold, hard determination. The kind of look she gave when she had already made up her mind. My mouth went dry. "You're serious?" She nodded. "I've never been with anyone but you, Martin. And after everything I've been through, I don't want to live with regrets." I felt something deep inside me twist. "So, your idea of living without regrets is sleeping with another man?" She hesitated, but nodded again. "It's not just about that. It's about feeling free, about experiencing something different." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Different? That's rich, Janet. After 20 years of marriage, after everything we've built, you suddenly need different?" "I'm not saying I don't love you," she said quickly, "but I need this." My hands clenched into fists. "And what if I say no?" She sighed. "Then I'll resent you for the rest of my life." There it was. The ultimatum. Either I agree, or I become the villain in my own marriage. I stared at her, feeling something inside me crack. And then, I asked the one question that would change everything. "Who is he?" She flinched, but she didn't look away. "Someone from work. He's leaving the company soon. It's the perfect opportunity." Perfect. The word made me sick. "You've always been attracted to him," I stated rather than asked. She swallowed. There was always something there, but I never acted on it. Not until now. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped me. "And that makes it better? That you waited until now to drop this on me?" She didn't answer. I ran a hand over my face. "And you think that after this, after you sleep with some other man, you'll just come back and what? We'll pretend it never happened?" "I think we can move past it," she said carefully. I shook my head. "You don't understand, do you? The moment you step into that hotel room with him, you've already thrown away everything we had." She exhaled, as if exhausted. "Martin, please, don't make this harder than it has to be." Harder? Was she serious? I stood up so abruptly that the chair scraped against the floor. "You want to cheat, Janet? Fine, but don't expect me to be here when you get back." She frowned. "What does that mean?" I met her gaze, letting the fury settle behind my eyes. "It means you're making your choice, and I'm making mine." She paled slightly, but before she could speak, I walked out of the room. I had nothing left to say. That night, I sat in my car across the street from the bar where her office party was being held. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who lurks in the shadows, spying on his own wife. But I had to see it for myself. People trickled out of the bar, laughing and stumbling into cabs. And then I saw her, Janet, my wife. She looked around quickly, her eyes scanning the street before locking onto someone. A man stepped out, a short, overweight, bald man in his late 40s. This was him. I had expected someone younger, someone attractive, someone who made her risk everything. But this was the man she was willing to destroy our marriage for. I watched, stomach churning, as she walked up to him, took his hand, and smiled. Without hesitation, they turned and disappeared into the hotel. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to let this slide. If she wanted a taste of betrayal, I'd give her a feast. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I packed all of her things and moved them into the guest room. Then, I left a note on the dresser. Find somewhere else to stay. She wanted her freedom. She could have it. Then I called my lawyer. I wasn't just going to leave her. I was going to destroy her. Janet returned home the next morning, her makeup smudged, her hair slightly disheveled. She looked satisfied. I sat at the dining table, sipping my coffee, pretending to read the newspaper. She hesitated at the door, looking around. Her eyes darted toward the staircase, where I knew she could see that our bedroom door was locked. Her suitcase sat outside the guest room. She turned to me, her brows furrowing. Martin, what's going on? I flipped a page, ignoring her. Martin, she pressed, stepping closer. Why are my things in the guest room? Slowly, I set the newspaper down, meeting her gaze with icy calm. You made your choice, Janet. Now, you deal with the consequences. Her face paled. This is ridiculous. We talked about this. No, you talked. I listened. And now I'm done listening. Her lips parted in shock. Martin, I told you it was just one night. It doesn't change how I feel about you. I let out a humorless laugh. It changed everything for me. She stepped closer, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. For 20 years, I was enough. And then, suddenly, I wasn't. I shook my head. You don't get to waltz back in here and expect me to just take it. She stared at me, stunned, as the weight of my words settled over her. Then, quietly, I said, Pack your bags, Janet. You don't live here anymore. Her breath hitched. You can't do this. I leaned forward. Watch me. She stormed upstairs, slamming the guest room door. That was fine. She could be mad, because I was just getting started. After she shut herself in the guest room, I grabbed my phone and dialed my lawyer. Martin, he greeted. Is this about what we discussed yesterday? Yeah, I said, pacing the living room. File the paperwork. I want a divorce. There was a pause. Are you sure? This is a big move. I clenched my jaw. I'm sure. I'll get started immediately, he said. Given that the house was purchased before your marriage, you have leverage. If you want her out, you can make that happen. Do it. Ending a 20-year marriage with a single phone call should have hurt more. But I felt nothing. Not yet. I hung up and stared at the staircase, listening to the muffled sounds of Janet crying upstairs. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying because she had finally realized what she had lost. And it was too late. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in weeks. I went downstairs, brewed a pot of coffee, and made breakfast for myself. Janet shuffled in, her face pale from lack of sleep. Can we talk? I took a bite of my toast. I don't see the point. She sat down across from me, her hands trembling. I made a mistake. I took a sip of my coffee. No, Janet. You made a choice. She exhaled shakily. It didn't mean anything. I met her eyes. It meant everything. Tears welled in her eyes. I love you. I set my coffee down, my expression unreadable. No, Janet. You love the comfort, the security, the 20 years of stability I gave you. But you threw that away. She reached for my hand again, but I pulled away. Please, she whispered. I stood up. You have until the end of the week to leave. She looked horrified. Martin, I don't care where you go. I interrupted. But you're not staying here. Her mouth opened and closed, like she wanted to argue, but she knew. I wasn't backing down, and that terrified her. I spent the next few days moving forward with the divorce, making arrangements to ensure Janet walked away with as little as legally possible. The house, mine. The savings, protected. Her options, dwindling. But Janet wasn't one to go down quietly. By the third night, I came home to an ambush. She had invited her friends, the same women who had encouraged her reckless decision. I barely stepped through the door before they attacked. Martin, don't you think you're being too harsh? One of them scoffed. She made a mistake, not a crime. Another chimed in. At least she told you. Someone else added. She could have lied. I'll let them finish. Then, I turned to Janet, expression unreadable. Is there anyone else you forgot to invite? I asked coldly. She stiffened. I just thought. I scoffed. That if you gathered a pity party, I'd magically forget what you did. Her friends looked at each other uncomfortably. She's been through so much, Martin, one of them said. She was sick. I clenched my jaw. So that justifies cheating? Silence. Then, I delivered the final blow. If your husbands ever cheat on you, I hope you show them the same level of understanding you're expecting from me." The room fell deathly quiet, and one by one, her friends left. As soon as the door shut, Janet broke down in sobs. But I wasn't moved. Not anymore. Janet refused to leave without a fight. She begged, pleaded, promised to fix things. And then, when none of that worked, she turned on me. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You're throwing away everything." I stared at her coldly. "No, Janet. You did." She stormed upstairs. The next day, she made her move. She reached out to our daughter. And that was the last straw. "Dad," my daughter said over the phone, her voice tight with emotion. "Mom told me you're kicking her out." I exhaled. "She told you everything?" "Not everything," she admitted. "Just that you're angry." I hesitated. Should I tell her? Should I burden her with the truth? Yes. She deserved to know. "Your mother cheated," I said flatly. "She didn't make a mistake. She made a choice. And now, she has to live with it." Silence. Then, a sharp inhale. She what? "She slept with another man," I said. "And she expected me to be okay with it." I could hear the shock in my daughter's breathing. She wasn't taking Mom's side anymore. She was seeing the truth. And that was my greatest victory yet. After my conversation with our daughter, Janet seemed to sense the shift. She tried calling her multiple times, but each call went unanswered. I could see the panic setting in. Losing me was one thing. Losing our daughter? That was something else entirely. That evening, she sat across from me at the kitchen table, her eyes swollen from crying. "Martin, please," she whispered. "Can we at least try to talk? For our family." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "You didn't think about our family when you booked that hotel room." She flinched. I wasn't thinking." "You were thinking just fine," I corrected. "You thought about it when you undressed for him, when you kissed him, when you let him touch you." Her hands trembled. I wasn't done. "You thought about it every step of the way, Janet. You just never thought you'd have to deal with the consequences." Tears streamed down her face. I was scared. Of what? I scoffed. Missing out on mediocre sex with a bald, fat man. She gasped. I smiled coldly. "Oh yeah, I saw him." Her face drained of color. "You saw," she whispered. I nodded. "I followed you. I watched you walk into that hotel, hand in hand with him." She clapped a hand over her mouth. "Tell me, Janet," I said softly, leaning forward. "Was he worth it?" She sobbed, and I enjoyed every second of it. Janet refused to leave. She spent the next few days walking around the house like a ghost, trying to talk to me, trying to get me to understand. But I wasn't interested in understanding. I was interested in revenge. So, I set up a meeting with her lover's wife. Her name was Rachel, and she had no idea what her husband had been up to. Until now. We met at a small cafe. Rachel was a quiet woman, kind, well put together. She looked exhausted, like someone who had spent years pretending everything was fine. I placed a manila folder in front of her. "What is this?" she asked. "Proof," I said simply. She hesitated before opening it. Inside were photos, screenshots, even the hotel receipt. Her face twisted in horror. "No," she whispered. "Not my husband. Not after everything he did." I interrupted. And Janet was his willing partner. She covered her mouth, eyes welling with tears. I let the silence stretch before speaking again. "I thought you deserved to know." Rachel inhaled sharply, straightening. "I thank you." Then, her expression darkened. "I hope he burns for this." I smiled. So did I. The fallout was swift. Rachel confronted her husband the same night. From what I heard, she threw his clothes out onto the front lawn and told him he was sleeping in his car. The office was buzzing with gossip. Janet walked in that morning looking like a wreck. Her lover refused to even look at her. He had his own mess to clean up. And Janet, she had nothing. Her marriage? Over. Her reputation? Shattered. Her affair? A disaster. And I wasn't done yet. I came home that evening and found Janet sitting on the couch, staring at the wall. "I lost everything," she whispered. I leaned against the doorway. "No, Janet. You threw everything away." She looked up, eyes desperate. "Is there any way we can fix this?" I chuckled. "Fix this?" I walked over and sat across from her. "You had a choice, Janet, and you chose to destroy our family, to betray me, to ruin everything we built." Her hands trembled. I'll do anything." I tilted my head. "Anything?" She nodded quickly. "Yes. Just tell me what I need to do." I leaned in. And then, with a voice as cold as ice, I said, "Leave." She gasped. "Get out of my house." I continued, "Pack your things, find a new place, and never come back." Tears streamed down her face. "Martin, please." I stood up. "This conversation is over." I turned and walked away, her sobs echoing behind me. This was just the beginning. Janet left the house 2 days later. She tried calling me, tried texting, tried begging. I ignored every single attempt. The divorce was finalized within months. She walked away with nothing. The house, mine. The savings, mine. Her lover, gone. She was left alone, miserable, and drowning in regret. And me? I was free. Janet's absence should have felt strange after 20 years together. But in reality, it was liberating. The house was quiet. No awkward conversations. No forced apologies. No pitiful glances. For the first time in months, I could breathe. But Janet, she wasn't taking it well. I knew because she called, over and over. Blocked numbers. Private numbers. Even messages from mutual friends, begging me to at least hear her out. I ignored them all. She had made her choice. And I was making mine. But she didn't stop there. A week after she moved out, I found Janet standing on my porch. In the rain, shivering, clutching a bag as if she had nowhere else to go. And before you ask, yes, I waited for her to be soaked before I answered the door. "Martin," she gasped. I don't have anywhere to stay." I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "That's not my problem." Her lips trembled. "Please, I don't want to lose you." I chuckled. "You lost me the second you walked into that hotel room." She broke down sobbing, and I let her. When the crying didn't work, she switched tactics. "I can't afford a new place right now," she said. "Can I just stay here, just until I get on my feet?" I pretended to think. Then I smirked. "No," and I shut the door in her face. I watched from the window as she stood there, shocked, as if she couldn't believe I wouldn't take her back. Then, slowly she walked away, and I felt nothing. Janet had been the golden girl in our social circle, the wife everyone envied, the one who always had advice on relationships, who played the perfect doting spouse at every dinner party. But after the affair, people talked. She had no idea how fast the news spread. She called a few friends. They didn't pick up. She tried to make plans. No one showed. Even her closest friends, the ones who had cheered her on, they were now keeping their distance. Because they saw what happened to Rachel's husband. Because they saw what happened to her. She wasn't a victim. She was a cautionary tale. And the woman who once lived for attention was suddenly invisible. While Janet's life crumbled, I built mine back up. I hit the gym. Revenge body. Check. I reconnected with old friends. I started dating again. Was it easy? No, but it was better. Janet, however, was still in denial. She thought that, eventually I'd cool down, that I'd come to my senses, that we'd fix this. She was wrong, because I was already moving on. And then, I met her. Her name was Claire. Smart, confident, gorgeous. The kind of woman who walked into a room and owned it. We met by chance. Nothing serious at first. But as weeks passed, she became something more. And Janet, she found out. She saw us at a restaurant. Saw me smiling, laughing, happy. And for the first time since the divorce, she snapped. She stormed up to our table, voice shaking. "Who is this?" she spat. Claire arched a brow. "His date." Janet turned to me, desperate. "Martin, you can't." I leaned back, smirking. "Oh, but I can." She trembled, rage and heartbreak battling in her eyes. "So you're just replacing me?" I shrugged. "You replaced me first." She opened her mouth, but she had nothing left to say. She had lost, and she knew it. 2 nights later, she showed up at my house again. This time, she wasn't angry. She was broken. "Martin, please," she whispered, eyes red-rimmed. "I don't know how to be without you." I sighed. "That sounds like a you problem." She reached for my hand. "I'll do anything. Anything to fix this." I looked down at her fingers, at the same hand that once wore my wedding ring, the same hand that touched another man. I pulled away. "I already fixed it," I said. "I divorced you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Please, Martin, just give me a chance." I tilted my head, like the chance you gave me when you climbed into his bed. She flinched. "I can't go back," I said softly. "And neither can you." She shook her head, chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. "So that's it. I nodded. That's it. And then, for the last time, I shut the door on her. I heard from mutual friends that Janet spiraled. The reality of what she had done, of what she had lost, finally hit her. She started therapy, became withdrawn, stopped posting her usual self-righteous nonsense online. She was finally facing herself. And me? I never looked back. Janet had always been the kind of woman who believed she could talk her way out of anything. That if she cried hard enough, begged long enough, she could fix whatever damage she caused. But for the first time in her life, her words meant nothing. She wasn't my problem anymore. And that realization, it broke her. Mutual friends told me she had stopped going out. She spent weeks locked in her apartment, barely speaking to anyone. No social media posts, no girls' nights, no smug little pictures of herself, pretending she was living her best life. Because there was nothing left to pretend. She had lost everything, and I wasn't done watching her lose more. The divorce was finalized, but Janet was still holding on to hope. She thought she could negotiate. That maybe, if she worked on herself, I'd let her back in. But when she got the settlement papers, she realized just how wrong she was. The house, mine. The savings, protected. Alimony, not a chance. Her reputation, ruined. She walked away with nothing. Because in the eyes of the law, she wasn't just a scorned wife. She was the cheater. She had thrown away 20 years for one night. And now, she had nothing to show for it. If Janet thought the legal loss was bad, she hadn't seen anything yet. Because our daughter? She wasn't stupid, and she wasn't forgiving. One night, Janet tried to force a conversation with her, tried to explain, tried to justify. And you know what my daughter said? Mom, if Dad had cheated on you, would you have forgiven him? Janet's mouth opened, but she had no answer. Because the truth was painfully obvious. She would have burned me to the ground. And now, she was expecting mercy. She didn't get it. The best revenge? Success. Happiness. Peace. And that's exactly what I found with Claire. Janet saw me with her. Saw me smiling, laughing, thriving. And it destroyed her. Because I wasn't miserable without her. I was better. And she was nothing but a regret. Janet never found another man like me. She tried dating, tried to rebuild, tried to find someone who would fill the void. But all she found were men who didn't take her seriously. Because her reputation followed her. She was the woman who ruined her own marriage. The woman who destroyed herself. And no one wanted to risk being next. She called me once, months later. I let it ring. And then, I blocked her. Forever. One day, I passed by her at a cafe. She looked small, tired, diminished. She saw me. And in that split second, I saw it in her eyes. Regret. Pain. A silent plea. I just smiled. And then, I walked away. Because she wasn't worth my time anymore. She had made her choice. And I had made mine. Janet learned, too late, that some betrayals can't be undone. That some choices have consequences. And that the worst pain is knowing you destroyed yourself. As for me, I moved on, built a better life, found real love. And Janet, she was nothing more than a lesson, a memory, a warning. And that was the perfect revenge.